The book I want to show you today is An Opening Repertoire for the Attacking Player by Edward Gufeld. This book is very interesting. I found it second hand for like $5, $7, because it tries to give you an entire opening repertoire for white and for black. For white, he advises you to play one e4, and against one e5 he will do the Vienna game. Very interesting, because I know it, but I didn't think it was so good. I didn't see it used for a long time. Against the Sicilian, he says to play the Grand Prix. But generally the Grand Prix today is played like this, because you want to keep control of d5, okay? And then we have also the black part, because the book is like 155 pages, but it gives you also a black repertoire. So that's crazy, totally crazy. And I find it very interesting. Why? Because the book is a mix. It's a mix of theory, so variation after variation, and games which are role models for you to remember the ideas. Honestly, I stick to my system, that is watching the games, because I think the games are what makes me remember the stuff better. But everyone can do whatever they want, okay? So here you can see an example. It's kind of thick with variations and lines, but the part I care about obviously is the one where you can start to watch a role model game. And this is what I want to show you today. The book begins with a Sicilian defense. Obviously we are white, we are learning the white side. And this game was played between Anand and Gelfand. Anand is white, Gelfand black, at Wakenzi in 1996. So e4, c5, knight c3, like I told you, because you want to keep control of this. d6. And then, of course, you play your normal f4, that is the Grand Prix attack. g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop c4, and knight c6. Okay, so I think this type of chess set, because sometimes you guys ask me about the chess sets, is called French Warrior, or French Knight Warrior, or something like that. Maybe because of the knight, but it's really beautiful. I don't know if you can see it. It's really detailed. Yeah, if I remember well, they told me that sometimes to make this kind of knights, the artisan takes like 70 hours. So it's really amazing the job they do, and they should be rewarded, obviously, for such a great artistic prowess. Okay, let's continue with the chess instead. After knight c6, here it says, Gelfand says, White's plan is based on the rapid mobilization of his kingside forces and an attack with pieces and pawns against the black king, a particular role being played by his bishop on the e2, g8 diagonal. The bishop is this one, okay? d3, e6, aiming as far as possible to restrain White's dangerous striker. Castle, knight g e7, and then there is queen e1 and h6. Black also fails to equalize by, he says that this move is not so good. because you would take back, it takes, and then there is knight e2. Obviously the line is a little longer and shows that as a quotation, a game between Nigel Short and Gelfand played in Bruxelles in 1991. So probably this h6 was an improvement from the game he played against the Short. Bishop b3. This is interesting. a6. Black sets up a barrier against the b3 bishop and prepares queenside counterplay with knight d4 and b5. For the moment, the attempt to exchange the bishop does not work, because if you play instead knight a5, and this is here, you will play bishop a4, okay? And after bishop d7, probably knight d5 or knight b5, and white advantage is obvious, it says. Why? Because it's attacking the pawn d6. So this a6, it seems important because it prevents the possible knight b5. Okay, so what did white play in this position? What would you play in this position? You know, sometimes in the opening you have a lot of possibilities, but it's kind of very important that you already think what you would play in this position, that it's a kind of opening, because yes, you have a bishop that you want to develop, but maybe you also have a chance in a lifetime, let's say, to immediately scramble the things for black. So, for example, here it played e5, a sharp break in the center that involves a pawn sacrifice. Also, a4 leads to a kind of complicated game, but let's see what happened here after e5. Black played knight f5, king h1, knight f d4, and white continued with knight e4. Very, very beautiful move, as you can see. Not only because he's occupying the outpost, but because he's starting to pressure black. And here it says, forcing the opponent to open the position, after which white gains strong pressure for the pawn. So what did black play? Black played knight takes f3. Rook takes f3. Now things are already going well for white. Why? Because, he has a rook that can go to attack the enemy king. So let's see how it continues. D takes e5, f takes e5, knight takes e5. Oh, very interesting move now. I would never think rook f1. Wow. g5. Now this position is interesting because you know what I think? It's a little strange. Where is going to keep the king in the center, because this side is already damaged, let's say, and this is it's trying to attack or doing something, but would you really castle on this side? I don't think so, right? So it's kind of interesting to see what happens. White continued with queen g3, and black played this. Boom. Practically forced play for both sides has led to this position, where white must decide whether to continue his attack, sacrificing if necessary, or calmly pick up the c5 pawn. So If you were white, guys, what would you do now? What would you play now if you were white? White played bishop takes g5. It is possible that knight takes c5 was objectively somewhat stronger. But this star-like sacrifice will undoubtedly afford pleasure to chess enthusiasts. As we can see, Anand was really a great player. H takes g5. Obviously I'm speaking in the past, but Anand is still playing chess, so I shouldn't have used the past. And knight takes g5. White has only a pawn for a piece, but the threat of queen h4 is pretty unpleasant, because there is checkmate, right? So what does our friend do? He plays knight g6. And black and white continues with rook e1, queen e7. And now, if you were white, what would you play? Try to pause the video for a second and tell me what you would play as white. As you can see, there is a reason why I like to watch games, because it's in a situation like this that you need to know what to do. And it's a kind of difficult move to find, I think. Then, I don't know, you let me know. He played rook f5. Boom. Anand conducts the attack brilliantly. Now, it seems the move knight takes f7 is wrong, okay? Because after rook takes f7 and queen takes g6, the material balance is bad in a sense, it's lower, and so it's advantageous for black. However, let's see how it continues. After rook f5, black plays bishop f6. And now, again, what would you play if you were white? Okay? As you can see, I'm trying to let you become strong like Anand, right? Because here, what would you play? There is this move that I find beautiful. Knight takes e6. And it seems black made a big mistake here. He should have played rook e8. Instead, he played f takes e6. And this is a mistake, the final mistake that black has made. How do you think it continues here? Well, it continues with rook takes e6. And of course, here there is king g7, trying to remove a king from the diagonal. Because you see, if he plays bishop takes e6, the next move is queen takes g6. And after queen here, right, there is bishop takes e6, check. And that's the problem, right? Because the game more or less is over. Okay, so let's see what Gufeld did. Gufeld played king g7. But after that there is rook takes e7, bishop takes e7, rook takes f8, bishop takes f8, and then of course h4, and the game is kind of over. And here Gufeld resigned. I hope you enjoyed this game from an opening repertoire for the attacking player. I think it's important that you know yourself. If you are an attacking player, then this opening repertoire could be for you, or at least give you some ideas to keep your opening repertoire always anew. Why this is important? Because if we play in weekend tournaments, our opponents generally pay attention to what we play, so we need to keep them guessing. And so thank you for watching this video, but try to give this book a try, because after all it's very cheap and he has a lot of good ideas.